I've grown up in older homes. In fact, I love old houses. You cannot replicate the character and the craftsmanship of an era that's far past what we used to do for materials, finishes, and just the labor and amount of attention to detail that they used to do in homes. But owning an older home is not for everyone. In fact, there's a lot of maintenance that comes with owning a house like that. And the biggest issue is homes that are built today are very different than homes the way that we lived back then. And so doing remodels is very common. And so you have remodels and additions occurring. And one of the big issues in historic homes is you have a historic district. So what does doing a remodel or an addition in a historic district look like? What are some of the things to think about, consider? And I really want to dive deep into that in today's video. Okay, so before we jump into that, if you like this video, if you want to know more about the Iowa City luxury market, please make sure you subscribe, and we'll be following more topics all about the Iowa City area. If you're looking to buy or sell, reach out, contact me. Love to tell you a little bit about what's going on in the Iowa City area. All right, let's dive into it. Let's begin about a project that's occurring in downtown Iowa City that Elevation Home Builders is doing a huge addition onto the back of this historic house. To start, let's go meet with Elevation Home Builders at their office and talk to Amy, who is the builder and worked with the city on getting the plans approved. Oh my, it is cold out today. So we're on our way to go talk to Amy at Elevation Home Builders office. And you know, owning a historic house isn't that much different than, say, this planned development that I live in now. A lot of new builds have covenants in their neighborhood. So you have to always abide by the covenants. So there is an extra layer. It takes a little bit more time and patience with a historic house, but a lot of that's for good measure. They want to protect the integrity and the overall look of the house, just as they do, say, in the subdivision that I live in. So we're going to talk to Amy, who just got done doing a giant addition on this historic house in downtown Iowa City. Let's talk to her about what it took to get this through and get it passed. So today we're sitting down with Amy Pretorius, my wife, who owns Elevation Home Builders, and they have a remodel division as well as a new construction division. And in the remodel division, they just started doing a addition to a historic house, right?
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about what that process is, what you have to go through. I mean, it's a lot like where we live in a lot of neighborhoods where you have like covenants and restrictions already, right? You just have very specific rules you have to follow. So what does that process look like?
So for instance, someone purchases a home or already owns a home that is in the historic preservation district. And the process really starts with what is it you're trying to do? Because of course there's going to be a lot of challenges and a lot of restrictions, more so than you find in a normal covenants. So the concept is you can do things to your house as long as it looks like perhaps it was always there. So doing anything that results in ultra modern, that's not going to happen. Using finishes or building products that did not exist back at the time the house was originally built, essentially, that's not an option either. So the thing you probably hear about most with historic preservation is when folks are trying to update homes, make them more energy efficient, you have to do so by using products that would have been available back then. So we're talking wood windows versus vinyl or fiberglass windows, using wood siding as opposed to siding products that are available today, such as LP products or even concrete siding to some degree. And then the process itself is kind of complicated. In this project that we're doing on Fairchild, what's unique about it is they want to do a fairly large addition, and the addition is going to make the house so much more usable for this growing family. Because as of now, it's a little tight, especially considering some of these homes that were built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The basements aren't usable space like the homes we build today. So you're really just working with what's above ground for actual space that can be utilized. Many of these houses don't have things like egress windows that are required for bedrooms in the basement. So we're adding an addition, and the thought process, which is a little backwards at first, is historic preservation wants the products of the home to look like they're original with the house. So you're going to use wood siding, you're going to do things like wood windows, but they also want it to also look like it's not a part of the original home. So you're going to have things like setbacks from the original exterior walls to showcase this was in fact an addition.
Yeah, I mean, the cosmetics stay the same essentially, but it's the addition itself needs to look like it was done in a separate time. If it was a box, you don't do the same uniform box in front. You do a different size or dimension.
Typically, they're going to want a minimum of 8 inches set in from the original sides of the home. So going bigger is not really an option.
Sides, you set in a little bit.
Yeah, going smaller is the only real option you have. And then, of course, 8 inches is going to be that minimum setback that we'd have.
Like a rectangle with the corners cut out.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Very interesting. So tell us a little bit about how the timeline works for something like this. Like, how long does it take for someone to pull the trigger, or the extra time it would take on, say, working in a historic district versus, say, a district that you didn't have to go through that extra loophole?
So when you're pulling a permit, in most usual districts, you're just pulling a permit. You're saying this is what we're going to do, and then you're essentially trusted to do it to code. And of course, there's going to be inspections that you have along the way to prove you did in fact build the addition, the remodel, whatever it is, to code. Historic preservation is different. They need everything completely sussed out up front and approved by either the commission, or there's some items city staff can go ahead and approve without having to go through the actual Historic Preservation Commission. But you will not be able to actually proceed with a building permit until Historic Preservation has in fact given the okay to the building department ahead of time.
So is this just you send the application in and they review it and get back to you, or do you have to go like present this in front of a committee?
It depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're checking certain boxes where the city can administratively approve it, it's going to be a much shorter timeline. If you're trying to do something a little bit more in depth, like an entire addition, you're going to go through historic preservation. You're going to have to wait for them to meet and wait for them to deliberate. And there might be an opportunity or a possibility that they're going to ask you to make modifications, and then they'll want to see that again before they actually approve it. So it's kind of like it behooves you to try to get it right the first time if that's going to be the case.
So you have a little bit of back and forth on getting it right. Did you have a lot of back and forth on the project that we're going to go look at today?
Actually, city staff was incredibly helpful. So they really gave us good direction before we went and presented what we were doing to Historic Preservation Commission. And we were lucky and we got approved the first time through. But again, had city staff not been kind of directing us and helping us through that process, I think it would have been multiple attempts. Yeah.
And so are the homeowners satisfied with kind of how the end product or what they got? They got kind of all their wants and needs in the final.
Yeah, I mean, they had to compromise
approval?
a little bit, right? I mean, when you're buying a house in historic preservation, you know about it, but I don't think you become an expert during this process. You're not an expert before the process. So everybody had kind of ideas as to what this addition would look like. And of course, that ended up, we had to compromise on that just a little bit. But yes, I do believe everybody's happy with the product and everybody's happy that we're going to be able to move forward in the direction that we're going.
Great.
Yeah.
Anything else, other notes, things people should think about when they're doing a remodel or an addition in a historic neighborhood?
Oh gosh, a couple things that really caught us off guard is, for instance, this house and the property is so old, there is actually no lot pins. And so we had to approach an engineering firm to essentially pin the lot. And so there was an added expense that nobody anticipated. And then we ran into some other really interesting things, like there's in fact a cistern that was buried in the backyard. Yeah, so there's the added cost of doing things like removing that and filling that in. Working in these historic districts and neighborhoods is complicated. We're really close to downtown Iowa City, and it's a very heavily used, populated area for students, and not a lot of off-street parking. So the on-street parking is very dense here. So trying to
contractors.
get contractor vehicle parking and whatnot is very interesting. Storage of materials, trying to bring in heavy equipment.
Trash cans and a porta-john.
Skid loaders, excavators, lifts that are going to be used to like lift the trusses up on the house eventually. It's a ballet of sorts.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds like an exciting project. We're going to go head out to the site and go take a look. We appreciate all your time, and we're excited to see the final project. So just pulled into the site. As you can see, there's like nowhere to park. I'm literally parked half in the alley here. Then they got the dumpster, which they need, and they have all the staging in the backyard for all the lumber and such. So as Amy mentioned earlier, like parking's just tight, and it's hard to do construction in very dense areas. So it's interesting, but let's go take a look and see what the addition looks like. So we're standing in what was the original kitchen, and as you can see, it was very small in here, and there was a little dining area over here. They knocked out the wall here. They have this bracing just temporarily, just to hold walls and stuff, such up. But this space will now go all back into this massive addition off the back, which we'll go take a look at next. So you can see they're just getting the subfloor on out here. You can also see what Amy was talking about, how they make sure that the addition is separate and distinctively different than the original house. So how it juts in like that, so that it has a very distinct look that's different from the original part of the house. It is -12 out here. It is freezing. These guys are troopers for working out in the cold. But that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. And if you have any questions on buying or selling in the Iowa City real estate market, make sure you reach out. Thanks for watching.